Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I am your host, Myreology here, ready to mansplain anger to you. As always I am, manspreading thus I do. This is Anger is an Energy. Anger is an energy. A raging beam of unfocused energy, so destructive, it tears through anything, even the fabric of reality itself. And it rips, it rends, it tears and beats and breaks. It claws and gnaws and it bites and it burns. Anger, when accumulated, lies like a blood clot, centered in the torso or in the back of the skull, spreading through the body like a toxin, taking its toll on muscles, tendons, nerves, on joints and bones, on mind and body both. Anger renders insanity a viable option to sanity, irredeemable unreality a viable option to reality. It clouds the mind and clouds the vision, fogs it down and breaks out in weird psychedelic patterns like spirals pointing down into the maelstrom, into the vortex, into the wild and incomprehensible asbestos jungle of irrationality, into weird, obscene and perverse pantomimes like burlesque shows done in acid baths, upside down and ridiculous, pointless, pissing into the wind. Anger is to be trained, to be tamed, to be overcome, to be focused. A raging beam of focused energy, so constructive that it tears through the illusion and the tricks and hits and kicks and snarls and roars. Just like any other overwhelming emotion, it ought to be channeled direct from its source, from its festering wound, from its inflamed tendons and burning muscle tissue. It ought to be called out to play and then to dance a mocking dance in a frenzied trance, channeled, controlled, focused, from the internal source, pointed straight at the face of the external source. From the mouth of the river straight back to the mouth of the river, as it were, feeding on and off itself until it is transcended, until all that is left is a laughter like a flame, burning brighter than the brightest fucking flame. Anger, once channeled, becomes an incredibly constructive force, let loose to become substantial, to become creation, to become inspiration, to become all that is, was, ever shall be. It goes from being the end of days to being the beginning of days. You're damned fucking right that I'm angry. And so fucking what? And no fucking wonder. For years and years, there was this unfocused mass of anger, tearing at my throat and at the base of my skull. Rage turned inwards, to become, essentially, self-destructive and self-deceptive self-annihilation, effectively self-devouring insanity, paving the way for depression and anxiety and eternal anguish, locked in the jaws of hell itself, in the jaws of hell myself more like, with no release for that destruction, that all-devouring darkness festering within, but a time-slap dance of next-level nihilism and dread despair, doomed eternally to equal parts self-pity and self-loathing. Pitiful and pathetic in a word or two. Perhaps with a smidgen of self-deprecating humor thrown in there for good measure. I see no strangeness in my anger, no oddities and no misguided notions of this or that or the other. When things are as unbalanced as they are, as irredeemably hateful and neglectful and with no illusion of it being anything but unjust as they are in the public discourse, or pubic discourse more like, on the subject of sex and gender, where men are painted as permanent patriarchal perpetrators of pestilent penetration and obscene oppression, I see little wonder and even less strangeness in my anger, or the anger of any other man who finds himself in the situation, in the shit stew, in the aching bones and broken body of arrhythmic anguish and anger. When the whimsical worries and petulant whining of one sex and one sex only is uttered constantly, up to and including the horrible sexism of the air conditioning, whereas the woes and worries of the other sex is scorned, ridiculed and beat like an abused child in perpetuity, anger is a particularly well-suited emotional response. Particularly so when the abused is blamed for their abuse. And make no mistake, nor any other piss take about it. Blaming boys, blaming men, blaming masculinity itself for all that is wrong in the world is abuse. Blaming masculinity itself for all that is wrong with the emotional world of boys and men is abuse. It is constant, chronic, permanent, perpetual abuse that is celebrated by the culture at large. A bird flipped right in our cracked and bleeding faces, through the wonders and the glory of the majestic cultural revolution we are pissed and prodded into in this awe-inspiring dawn of the honk. You're damned fucking right that I am angry, and I am damned fucking right in my anger. All the blabber-mouthed blubber talk we are force-fed about how everything has a negative influence on the self-image and self-esteem of girls and women. How pictures of slim women, for example, makes girls anorectic. How it is an unrealistic body standard, a beauty ideal handcrafted by the greedy hands of thirsty and oppressive men. Pictures of titties sell products, mainly to women, since women are the ones who consume the most product and spend the most money. But that is beside the point. It is only there for the sexual gratification of men you see and have got to understand with every inch of your throbbing patriarchy muscle. Incidentally, throbbing patriarchy muscle is my wife's pet name for my penis, also known as my awe-inspiring rape implement of doom. Even when this line of thought, that only straight men would drool at the feet of a picture of a slim woman, through the reasoning of the social justice warrior and feminist hive mind, is absurdly heteronormative. Not that internal consistencies matter all that much, mind you, not when there is outrage to be generated and revenue to be had from said outrage, be that social revenue or actual revenue. These ads and images have got to be changed, even outlawed, you see, so that the poor girls should not grow up to be slim women caught in the throes of anorexia, which is apparently any woman who is not morbidly obese if one is to believe the fat activists. But no mind, little matter. Or, well, much matter, little mind. For all that talk, that grunted gibberish, that buzz and thump, there is virtually no talk that this bombardment of constant negative messages we are spoon-fed regarding the nature of boys, the nature of men, the nature of masculinity itself is harmful to the emotional well-being of boys and men. No condemnation of this complete and utter contempt for boys and men, showcased and highlighted as it is as being some supreme moral good. It is rage-inducing. There is no acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, painting men in their entirety as some wicked, cruel, false and flawed evil entity hell-bent on destruction and oppression has a negative impact on the self-esteem, the image of self and the belief in self of boys and men. No acknowledgement whatsoever that constantly belittling, attacking and devouring boys and men and masculinity is damaging. Boys and men don't feel anything, according to the whims and bleeding gums of Queen Neoteny and her awesome state of hysteria. And when we do, what we feel is wrong, how we hurt is wrong. The reason is something toxic masculinity something. It is rage-inducing. Psychological torment and emotional abuse is a-okay, as long as you point a cerebral gun directly at the minds of boys and men. As long as you vomit this contempt straight at the hearts and souls of boys and men. It is okay. The sick is dripping on us from every level of society. Misandry made manifest in law, made to be a natural part of everyday social interaction, part of the social fabric, in truth and as a matter of fact. And they have the audacity to present it as being of help to boys and men, as lending us empathy and understanding. It is rage-inducing. Or, well, there is talk that this is harmful to boys and men, and society itself, for that matter. Yet, those of us who do talk about it are scorned, ridiculed, laughed at and labelled misogynists, as carriers of the virus of fragile masculinity and toxic masculinity, as incels and abusers and oppressors and rapists and rape apologists and violent madmen and God knows what else. As long as there is a somewhat suitable label to throw around, the labels and the insults and the dismissals will rain down upon us. So much vomit and rot straight from the horse's mouth. For added emphasis and sympathy, the feminist will feign fear and terror at any objection to feminism, claiming it to be terrifying and frightful and making her feel unsafe. A true picture of strength, resilience and independence. Obviously, it is rage-inducing. Then this anger from men will be used to further paint men as inherently dangerous to women and children and society and the world and the universe and God and the devil and our neighbors and their pet poodles. As defective and destructive, disruptive and demonic. This despite the anger being directed at feminism as a set of ideas, not women as a group. this does not matter to a mind and a worldview that is incapable of separating their sex from an ideology, which says more about them than it ever will about us, but this don't matter much to a society caught in lies, slander and hysteria. The terribly trembling forces that be do nothing but dismiss those of us who dare to talk about that which we dare talk about. When once one has been dismissed as a misogynist, an oppressor and abuser of women, with no evidence provided, nothing substantial presented as proof, one is fair game for all the scorn and hate and shame and ridicule society has got to offer, for simply highlighting the struggles of men through a lens not tainted by feminist ideology. We are hated. Hate and shame and lies and slandered, packaged with deliberate care and sent our way from the fair and frail forces that never care to listen to or think about what we are, in fact, saying, writing, screaming and singing. Choosing instead to only listen to the voices of the narrow and malicious mainstream narrative that dared paint all men everywhere as violent oppressors of women, and all women everywhere as oppressed by violent men, forever and ever and in thy kingdom lost. Amen. For the anger of men is dangerous, is unpalatable, is to be presented as abuse in itself, then quenched, then drowned, then taken into the presentation of the predatory patriarchy theory, the pestilent propaganda that furthers the cause of the hive mind and all its clinger-ons and orbiters, that never once stopped and paused and considered and wondered why this anger exists, that never once took the time to listen and understand where the anger stems from, choosing, instead, to smear and ponder, to point fingers and propose that they know where the anger comes from, choosing, instead, to believe that they, not we, are the ones to tell everyone everywhere why we are angry. It is rage-inducing. You're damned fucking right that we are angry, and we are damned fucking right in our anger. This rage, this anger, this accumulated energy that rends, rips and tears at the inside of the self, of the body and the mind, the heart and the soul, must be let loose. It must be purged, expelled, let out of the system, lest it festers and ruins and breaks a man down. If not channeled properly, anger is incredibly destructive, either to oneself or to society at large. Now, of course, a bunch of angry and self-destructive men focusing their rage inwards is damaging to society, as well as the one man himself. That is besides the point, at least at the moment of pointing. The point I am trying to point at is a simple one. When channeled properly and expelled graciously, anger may very well be an incredible force of creation and construction, be that for the self or for the world, though preferably for both. Some men do martial arts, some men lift weights, some men do this and some men do that. It does not matter what at the end of the day, as long as one does something constructive with one's anger, instead of cultivating it as some roaring, burning, destructive inner crass and crusty calamity, a tumor or an ulcer that grows and grows, becoming fatter and fatter for every new slight, every new trespass, every new whatever, until it kills. For my part, I chose writing as my main outlet for all my anger and rage and disillusionment, and I am all the better for it. By every conceivable metric, even though healing from grief, loss, anger and despair is a slow, long, arduous and constant process, I am all the better for it. And wiser, I would dare say, insofar as I can be considered wise, I suppose. In my writings, rants, ravings and ramblings, there is a release of pressure that would otherwise build and build and build, culminating in an explosion. Doing as I do and being as I am, this explosion would become an implosion, beating in and down on myself until there would be nothing left of me but a smear on the carpet of a bathroom after a drunken stupor. And that thought, in itself, is rage-inducing. Better, then, to write and rave and rant and ramble for as long as I am able, until I get considered a foul purveyor of hate speech and get shipped off to the gulag for re-education and re-examination of my frail, toxic and incredibly violent masculinity. Thank you very much for watching. Here follows an outro most befitting a video of this nature, a blatant attempt at virtual panhandling. Should you wish to support this channel, as well as my blog and any further endeavours this strange path will take me on, there are a few ways you can do that. The easiest would be to like, share and subscribe, as well as clicking the sometimes functional notification bell. Having the message, such as it is, manspread and mansplained far and wide will do wonders. You could also support my rambling and barely contained insanity by buying my books, which are linked below. More books will be made available as time allows. I also have a Redbubble shop, linked below, where you can buy prints in various forms of some of the artwork presented in my videos. Or you can contact me through the contact form on my blog for original artwork, commissions or prints direct from the source, so to speak. Until next time, I am your humble bearded bard, Morea Legier, manspreading majestically beneath the steel sky of doom.